Welcome back, grade 8. So let's talk about our next unit. We just finished drawing nets and then using nets and 3D object, 3D prisms, you can say, square, rectangular, triangular prisms, and calculating their surface areas and volumes. So we're done with that, and we're moving on to a new unit, and this is chapter 8 in your textbook. So we're starting on something called sketching views of objects. Okay, so we're going to cover 3 sections of this all together because it's a fairly easy concept. It does not need to go in that much depth. So first was what was that? Exploring, sketching. Okay, and then it talks about drawing. Well, what's the difference, right? Okay, so when it could be different from an artist's point of view, but for us, it's not a huge difference because we're just kind of drawing them on a paper, okay, and then building objects from views. Okay, so we're not going to go too much into depth. We're just going to kind of talk about how this works. Okay, so this is pretty similar to nets. Okay, so I'm not going to go back into that again. Excuse me. So we're gonna just talk about how that works. Okay, so this is pretend that this is my building. Okay, so how that works is when we're standing on one side of the building, we don't see all sides of it. Okay, so we're gonna pretend that we actually can't go like this. We can only see from this. Okay, so we're gonna start very, very simple. Okay, so if I'm standing in front of this building, all I'm going to see, so I'm going to draw inside, okay, as I always do with these because these are so much easier to work with. Okay, so no, it's not disconnected like that. So I'm going to also try to draw it from the outside so you can see. Okay, it breaks apart really easy, so it's very unstable. Okay, so excuse me. So what are you going to talk about? You don't need to draw this kind of stuff. So you can say, I see one square. Okay. Okay. So I'm gonna kind of connect that, and I see one triangle. Okay. So that's front view. So we're gonna label this front. Okay, just like we did in 3D objects, when you're doing surface areas, you want to label them front, back, left, right, top, bottom, and stuff like that. Okay, so that makes it easy for you to keep a count of all the sides so you don't miss anything. Okay, now if I do it this side, okay, I see 2 squares. Okay, so again, I'm going to draw this right here. Okay. Okay, so I'm gonna just improvise here again. So, and the top square, and they fall apart. So I'm gonna pretend that I have a square here. It's not very good. You know me. You know how great of an artist I am. Okay, so 2 squares. So what you're thinking is, from each perspective, I only see certain pieces of the building. So from this side, I only see 2 squares. From this side, I see square and a triangle. And if I was going to look at from the top, I see 2 squares. Okay, so you're going to see kind of something similar. So that's what we're talking about when we're talking about views. Okay, so drawing a view and then folding it up. So when it gets really complicated, what we're going to do is we're going to do so left. And then what are you going to try to do is building part of 8.3 talks about building from the views. Okay, so what you will have when you look at the examples in there, it will give you left view, front view, back view, and based on that, you have to recreate the design. Okay, so if I give you this, okay, so let's say I'm going to get a new sheet of paper here. And I'm going to draw. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw and say, okay, I want you to have 2 squares and a triangle. Okay, Okay, so that's my front, so I'm going to label that F. And my back is also a triangle. Okay, so that's my back. Oh, let's do it this way so you can see. Okay. And now I need, I'm going to do 2 squares. Okay. And that's my left, L for left. And I'm going to do another one right here. And then, and call that right. And then, oh, that looks funky. Okay. And then I'm going to do top. Okay, so I'm going to do this and okay. So location of each shape is very important because that tells us what the top looks like, and are they side by side vertically or horizontally or vertically. Okay, so I'm standing on the side, so for me it's vertical, so that's why I'm calling it vertical, even though from your perspective it's horizontally side by side. Okay, so one square is right next to the other. And now I'm going to call this the top, so T for top, and my bottom is just a square. Okay, so for 8.3, 8.1 and 2, you're just going to look at shapes and draw from each perspective. Okay, so it could be as easy as getting someone's toys in the house, or grabbing a bunch of different shapes in your house. It could be a tissue box, put a toilet paper roll beside it, or you can, if you have toilet paper, if you're one of those people who got all the toilet paper from the stores during COVID-19, then you feel free to create a design using your toilet paper. Okay, for those of us that didn't hoard, we'll have to improvise. Okay, so let's see what I can create here. So let's say I put this here, okay? Yeah, those are the locks I need to put on all the cupboards and drawers so my son doesn't get into all of that stuff. So I could create, the idea is you want to get different sides, different shapes. So when I look from the top, I have a rectangle and a circle, okay? From this side, I'm going to have, it looks like 2 rectangles, okay, different dimensions. And same here, from the top, it would look like a rectangle, okay, with embedded rectangle, and from the bottom it would just be 1 rectangle. So that's kind of the idea. You can put a bunch of things together, smaller, you can rotate and kind of move things around, so that helps a little bit. So that'll be another thing we'll be talking about in a little bit. So let's say that I have this design and I have to create. Okay, so I have magnetics. So what I'm going to start with is my front face. So I need to have this. Excuse me. Okay, so now I'm going to create my back. Okay, and then I'm going to create the left side. Okay, so if that's my front and I need this on the left, okay, so I'm going to start creating it already, and that's my back. Okay, and then I need my right. Okay, so that's also 2. Okay, so those are 2 squares, and my bottom, oh, I forgot to label that. B is for bottom. Okay, okay, so bottom, or I should use a base. I'll write base on it because I have B for back as well, so I don't want to confuse those two. So I need a base, okay, so that's going to go under, okay, and this is my top view. So once I actually I did left and right attachments, my top is already there. I don't need to add a different one. So that's creating 3D objects from the views given. Okay, so play around with that, and sometime what you'll have to do is just look at what shapes have been given in your textbook and imagine in your mind and say, what would a 3D object of that look like? Okay, we don't always have manipulatives that you can play around with and work with. Okay, so another thing, as I mentioned a little bit, rotating. Okay, so let me see where that is. Okay, so as I mentioned before, so in the first one, we're just looking at different sides and we're sketching views of objects. The second section is drawing views of rotated objects. So how is that different from just drawing or sketching different views? Okay, that's because rather than flipping it around, we're imagining an axis. So again, we go back to Cartesian coordinates. So that kind of stuff that we just did, that was part of linear equations. So imagine an axis. Okay, so pretend that this is my axis right here. Okay, so I'm gonna prop my phone up so you can see. So what I'm doing is here, that's my axis. So I'm gonna rotate the building to that axis. Okay? So that's technically what we did in the first part. Only we didn't discuss it based on that. Okay, so I can say I have my front. So my front, and if I rotate it 90 degrees, I get to my right. Okay, or if I rotate it 90 degrees again to the left. Okay, so if you imagine it from the top, I can say clockwise and counterclockwise. Okay, so this we'll do more of this in the next few sections. When we get to transformation, we're going to talk about rotation over at a point, around a point. So we're talking about axis more now. So if I rotate this house, so that's the front, I rotated, if you imagine it from the top, I'm rotating it counterclockwise and I get to my left. Okay, and if I rotate counterclockwise 180, okay, I get to the back. Or if I'm looking from the top, I can imagine my axis right here. Okay, so if I'm rotating it this way, I see the top. So if I start from the top, I rotate to the, or rotating it this way. So it's a little bit harder to visualize when you're looking from, so you're doing counterclockwise. Okay? So you have to look from the perspective of your pen or whatever you're using to visualize the axis. So if I do counterclockwise, I get to the left or right. So if you use colors, you'll be able to remember what was left and what was right. So, and that, what are you doing is, so that's rotating. So if I rotated about this pen, okay, so that's my axis, I can rotate it around and I see different views. Okay, so if I rotate it around this, okay, I see the top, I see the front, and I see the bottom, the base. Okay, so play around with that. Most for when we're talking about linear equations, there's not a lot of stuff you can play around with other than the tiles, and most of you did not like tiles. Happens every year. Most students, you would think that visuals actually help us. There's very small percentage of students who are like, yeah, I get this. Most of you are begging, can we please not draw tiles? Okay, I don't understand it. Okay, so this few sections, we're going to have a lot of hands-on. Okay, so use that to your advantage, okay, to help yourself visualize. You'll get a so much better understanding than just drawing, because our brain does not comprehend 3D objects, even though we live in the 3D world. Okay, so sometimes when we're looking at a building, we only see one perspective. Okay, or if we move, we can see the left or the right, but we don't see all the sides at the same time. So sometimes when you're doing surface areas and volumes, students have a hard time, they miss a side when they're calculating. So use whatever you have laying around to help you. Okay, so you can create your own. Okay, it doesn't have to be magnetics. It can be a couple different things you can put together. Start simple. Okay, so let's do this one. Okay, let's say that this is my axis. Okay, so if I rotate it around this axis, so I'm looking from this perspective. Okay, so I'm going to see the front, and I'm going to see the left, and I'm going to see the back, and I'm going to see the right, or yeah. Okay, so then if I pin my axis, this here, right in here, okay, then I'm going to see the top, the left, the bottom, the right. Okay, so kind of have to imagine this and play around a bit before you kind of get a good grasp of it. Okay, so we're not going to do a lot on this. I will ask you to create a 3D image or object. You can put a bunch of objects together and create a view and take pictures from different views and label them front, back, left, right, top, and bottom. You may not be able to do bottom if you're putting big objects together, and that's okay. As long as you do 5, I'm good with that. So that will be your short project for this section, that you're going to take pictures from different perspectives, and then if you're using simple shapes, you should be able to look at your picture and draw a simple drawing and label them front, back, left, right, top, base, and so on. Okay, and then we'll move on to transformations. Okay, take care.